Welcome to Momspresso's very first CMO's Roundtable, a double celebration for us, in fact, as we're also launching our report, A Definitive Guide to the New Age Mom. It's a comprehensive study conducted by Momspresso and Omax that deep dives into the most interesting digital transformation in the journey of motherhood. Momspresso's position as India's largest content platform for moms has enabled us to be keen observers as well as active participants in this very interesting digital transformation of motherhood, right from emerging as an active information seeker to a key influencer or decision maker of the household. And our topic of discussion is also directly linked to this emergence of new age moms and how the fabric of motherhood is changing, how moms are responding to the shifts happening in their ecosystem, especially from a brand perspective. So I'm going to get the ball rolling with an introduction to our panel today, or rather our all-star panel, as I would like to call it. So let me start by introducing Mansi Narasimhan. She's Vice President and Head Marketing and Communications South Asia at MasterCard. Mansi is a marketing professional with about 18 years of experience spanning fintech, FMCG, media, multi-category corporate brand. But what we really look forward to today is hearing her perspectives, as we know she's been passionate about the role of media, convergence of traditional and digital, and of course, content. We also have with us Manisha Lat Gupta. She's former marketing director at Uber. But that introduction is extremely incomplete because besides her 20 years of experience in marketing and advertising, strategy, innovation, digital channels, product management, customer experience across FMCG and banking, Manisha has also been an entrepreneur, continues to be a permaculture farmer. I'm sure I've left a lot of things out, and we'll definitely catch up on those little gaps once we start talking. We also have with us Anuradha Agarwal. She's cluster head kids infotainment English channels at Star TV Network. Anuradha has been instrumental in developing and activating both product and service brands in India and South Asia. Also welcome Priya Lobo. She's the CEO of Max Compass. Priya is, of course, a veteran of over 25 years in the area of market research, understanding consumer behavior, but that's not all she's exploring. Priya's varied interests range from trekking and adventure sports to theatre, poetry, and food. We're all moms on this platform today, and I welcome you all. Thank you so much for joining us on Momspresso's very first CMO Roundtable. Thank you. Okay, so before we move on to the actual changing face of moms and the whole idea of new age digital mom, I think it would be great to get some insight into your own motherhood journey that's balanced by a very successful career for each one of you, in fact. Mansi, let's start with you. Your children are very young. They're at 3 and 8 years.
That's right, yeah.
Parenting, we know for life, it's going to be a roller coaster. But we also know how steep the ups and downs are at this stage, at the very young stage. And especially in this lockdown situation, the lockdown has tested your multitasking and supermom skills. Like one of our respondents to the survey had mentioned that life is a big boss show right now. So I think that's so true for all of us, but we'd love to hear from you, Mansi. Tell us more.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Parul. My boys are 8 and 3, and that's a very fascinating age. The younger one was due to start nursery school, and obviously some things I think can't be done online. So it's been challenging, but there have also been tremendous upsides of this lockdown specifically. I think one has been the way, even at this age, they've stepped up to help with small things in the house, because like with everybody else, we've been short of domestic help. They've appreciated and ate everything that I've cooked. So I think that's been a huge upside. And I think I've recognized that a lot of our work can indeed be done from home. And knowing that even going forward, it's going to be months before we get back to life as we knew it pre-COVID. MasterCard is certainly looking at a 1 week on, 1 week off, possibly through till the end of 2020. So it's comforting to know that much of our work can indeed be done from home with all the challenges of technology, having the kids around. And I think companies have learned to appreciate that it's perfectly fine to have kids torpedo a conference call. It's acceptable. It's almost encouraged. So I think those have been some of the learnings for all of us as we've gone about this journey.
Right, absolutely. I think you're so right about the learnings. And we've all realized that, those unnecessary day trips, morning to evening, running to Bangalore, to Bombay and all, those can be so easily replaced by something like what we're doing right now, a Zoom call.
Absolutely.
Right. Anuradha, let's move to you. With a young teen and an older teen, you're definitely handling a very different range of stresses at present. It would be interesting to know how the stress factors have changed over time for you. And especially, I'd really like you to concentrate on the fact of balancing work and personal life. How much of a stress factor has that been in your life?
If I was to talk slightly longer term, and I have two girls who are 17 and 13, so it's a very interesting time. But I also feel like this is amazingly valuable time for me. Right now, this time that I get to be at home with them, I know they're really busy with their own lives. They have online classes. My elder one's studying to take some entrances. I still have to sneak some time away from their schedules to spend time with them. So I really value the fact that I don't commute to work anymore, and grown-up children are a lot of help. So with the right values, they're actually great to have around, and I think with seeing this kind of an environment is a great opportunity for them to learn how life can be unpredictable, to build resilience, and to build maybe skills which otherwise life would not have given them. So my younger daughter started cooking. She's beginning to pick up new skills, and you spoke about stresses. I feel like, and Manisha and I've discussed this many times in the past, I feel like there's no work-life balance. It's a work-life mashup. For the last 21 years, it's never felt like I'm like striking a balance. I just feel like this is how it is. I'm a mom and I work, and in my life at least, one very seamlessly has always been part of the other. So even when I worked in organizations, where I had to do distant working, I had teams in Indonesia, China, South Africa, I would be working like this anyway. So this, on Zoom calls and on, distant working, and I've actually felt that was very effective. So for me, this environment for work from home is great. I actually think that it's possible. I miss social interaction more than anything else, and not so much the going to work bit. And I think it reduces the stress on me as a parent. I love the fact that I have more time with my kids right now. If there have been stresses in the past, it's been because when the kids have been younger, they've been unwell. We've had to, there's a certain, or there's too much, there's something going on at work, there's travel. I think it's only at times like this when you're doing something extraordinary where the balance may, go one way or the other. But otherwise, you just work it out over time, and it just becomes a very seamless process.
I think that's great. I mean, you've been able to work out the work-life, personal life mashup in that case. I love that term, by the way. I think it's just so true. It's reflective of something that all of us go through. It's never a balance. It's always a mashup. I have a question for you now, Manisha, of course. In your very multifaceted life, your corporate life across banking and the FMCG sector, your work with ARP, your entrepreneurial success with India Art Collectors, and now organic farming, you seem to have followed every dream and passion. I'm sure there must be some really interesting stories along the way. I would especially love to hear about how your daughters have reacted to and been involved with everything that you've done.
Well, Parul, what shall I say? I think it's just that I have a lot of ideas, passions, and I feel like doing many things. And I'm lucky to have had a very supportive family, including my husband and children, who've always sort of backed up my ideas and said, let's do this. It sounds like fun, and I think you can do it. So I think I'm very grateful to them for being very supportive of my ideas, and also actually jumping into them and being part of them. I think it's all about how you sell and pitch your idea internally to the family and to the children. I really believe in telling stories to children and sort of selling them your way of life, or selling them, your life's choices. Because very often I feel parents get under too much pressure about what other people are doing. and sometimes don't have the necessary answers for their children when they ask, like, how come the other people have this and we don't, or how come they go on these holidays and we don't, etc. We are spending our holidays in 45 degrees at a farm, whereas everybody else is taking business class flights to some island. So, how do you sell those stories to people, to your children, and how do you give them enough logic and story and a sense of adventure and excitement that they are convinced that, yes, this is a defensible story and they can go out there and not succumb to peer pressure from other children. So that's really been our sort of parenting strategy almost our entire lives. Agam, my husband, has always sold himself as the retro guy because he's always had old cars, never sort of has fancy gadgets or watches or anything of that sort. And when the kids were young, they would say, like, how come dad doesn't have a fancy car when everybody else does? And we said, hey, you don't know, dad is a retro guy. And they're like, what's a retro guy? The retro guy is a guy who doesn't like new things. He likes only old things. They're like, okay. And then, they went and started asking other children, is your dad a retro guy? Because my dad is a retro guy. So then the other kids started feeling a bit of pressure that, my dad is not retro and, Radha and Ida's dad is. So I think it's just about how you sell your life choices and your adventures and get the family involved. And, there's a sense of adventure amongst the children to have a life which is, exciting and has a lot of stuff happening. And I think overall, my children are now 17 and 20. And it's really interesting to see their sense of adventure, their sense of entrepreneurship, the amount of initiative they take, the groundedness that they have. So I think a lot of that has happened because of the slightly offbeat and adventurous upbringing that we've given them.
I think that's a huge plus point because, we know that children observe and learn. And look at what all they've had the opportunity to observe. So congratulations on that, Manisha. Priya, my question to you is about the metaphorical village. So they say it takes a village to raise a child. Tell us, your daughter is 17 years old now.
Oh, yes.
In all those years, what did the village look like right in the beginning? And what does it look like for you right now? And what do you think young mothers today have to fall back on as a village?
I just love this phrase. It's an African phrase. And I remember when my daughter Tahira was born, I realized that I had such a fantastic support system, right? I had my husband, I had my dad, my in-laws, cousins, extended family at Ashok Vihar who actually watched and helped raise my daughter. I never felt alone, even though I was, going to work. It just happened seamlessly, as Anuradha said. But when I was doing this study, I realized that, there's a sea change that has happened. Right. Moms are feeling alone. Moms are worrying about handling this entire child. And a very dear friend said, I feel this is a product. It's almost like a lab experiment. I have to do everything. And that, just stopped me in my tracks. And I felt, we're talking about nuclearization. It's just a physical nuclearization that I thought. Right. But I think it's a mental nuclearization that is happening where she feels that she's so responsible. And that's a huge shift from the time that I had my daughter, and I was fortunate. But I think it's a lot more lonely now because mothers are trying to do it all by themselves and saying that, no, this is my show, my thing. And that's a big change.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. The whole fabric has changed, and I think we're all dealing with it in different ways. Priya, I know you had a question to ask everybody, so maybe we can do quick reactions to your question around.
Yeah. I'm happy that we have, a mother who's got small kids and also teen daughters. And I like the phrase that you said, Manisha, you see your child growing up, right? And becoming young ladies or handsome lads. But one of the things that I've found in this study, which actually, sometimes sets me thinking as a mother as well, that raising a child, I found a lot of these mothers were dealing with communication issues. And I'll tell you where that was stemming from. It was about, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Second guessing, being unsure all the time. And it starts as young as 2 years old, right? And it goes right up to teens. And they're constantly second guessing. And that was a huge area of interest for me. And I would like to hear from you all. how you as mothers have opened this channel of communication. How have you tided through all this?
I think this is where being a working person helps, because a lot of things that you learn in the corporate environment, all the tools around communication, feedback, collaboration, it's very easy to take some of those things that you learn at office back into your homes and put them to good use. And I remember in 2004 when I joined Colgate-Palmolive, one of their key cornerstones of their HR philosophy was giving and taking feedback. And I felt like, I was doing all this at work, trying to keep my colleagues happy and making sure that they don't have any, grudges against me. How come I'm not doing this at home? How come I'm not having this kind of a, giving and seeking feedback kind of an environment at home? And so we decided that, I went back and talked about this with my husband and the children who were much younger that time. But we just decided that this is the culture that we're going to have at home as well, and have a very open channel of communication. And as parents, you have to also expose your own vulnerabilities to children so that they don't feel shy about talking about their vulnerabilities. So I've had, ups and downs. I've taken had tough times at work, good times at work. I think it's important for children to see your lows as well as your highs, because then they realize that, this is normal. And so what's happening to me, I can tell mom about it as well, because, when things happen to her, she tells me. So I think that's the kind of communication spirit we've tried to build within the family. Trying to just tell people each other things and sort them out if things are not working out fine. And that's given people the confidence. And sometimes I've had to sit them down and say, this is going to be tough, but you have to tell me. You have to tell me to my face what I did wrong or what you didn't like about what I said. And I think that's sort of helped the girls to get the confidence to also apply some of this outside of the family and at school with teachers and, with other people they interact with.
Anuradha?
So I'm nodding vigorously as Manisha's talking, because I think experiences can be similar. I guess, I feel like this communication starts really early, and the principles have to be carried through most of their life. So whether they're 2 or 20, if you start at 2, it's easier to do it when it is 20. If you start later, you've already established some habits with the children, which they find difficult to break. So I feel like, that the road to communication or good communication was something that I would have said maybe normally, maybe without thinking about it when they were younger. But as they grew older, I started using the tools that Manisha was talking about. And feedback is actually a word that we use in the family. This is feedback. Let's take it graciously and then let's talk about it. It's something we talk about on the dining table. So it's, okay, your teacher gave you feedback. So why are you reacting to that? Let's talk about it. So I think that for me, that time, for us as a family, that time at the dining table is very valuable. When we sit down for a meal, it's a no device time, it's a no TV time, and we've been doing it for 15, 16 years. And that technically is a time where all 4 of us talk. So the 2 sisters talk to each other all the time. So we have to actually say, this is the time that you have talked to the parents, please, and not just to each other. But it really helps us to share. We share as parents, as we come back and we all have some frustrations or something to celebrate. So when they were younger, it used to be more structured. It used to be, okay, tell me what was the best thing that happened to you today. And then it now starts off very naturally, or, what is something that bothered you? And now it's very natural. It's free-flowing conversation where nobody wants to leave the dining table, long after we've cleared it. So I think it's really important. And I also think it kind of depends on the personality of children. I have 2 girls, they're very different from each other. One who's wants to share but one-on-one. So she'll come to me and I can make out that, she's come to my room at 10 o'clock at night means she has something to talk about. So, and we go out and we then chat for an hour and a half. And then I realize there's a lot going on and that she wants one-on-one time. And the other one is like, she'll just throw it out there in front of everybody and she'll expect someone to react to it. So it's also personality. Yeah. So I really feel like as what we learn in leadership is situational leadership. I think I feel like there's a lot of situational parenting you have to apply.
Well, very interesting to hear Manisha and Anuradha's sort of views on it. Obviously, with my boys being much younger, but I think, appreciate a couple of things. One, I think opening up about our own vulnerability and, just given the age of my kids, the younger one came the other day and said, I'm scared of snakes. I think, watched something on Nat Geo or something like that. And then he asked me saying, Mama, what are you scared of? And, just to talk about stuff that I've been scared of, to kind of assure him that it's not wrong or harmful or immoral to be scared of something, I think was a good step. And the other thing, I think, as Anu said, absolutely valid, it's important to make some time for them. I mean, all of us are insanely busy. But I think if we make those times in the day, so some of the things I've started doing now that we've started easing up a bit, now that I'm at home with the kids, have lunch with them. Unless it's unavoidable, do not schedule calls at that time. Take the kids down in the building for the walk, which is a no device time. So I think those little things, of course, the age that my kids are, I don't think they come and say, I have stuff to share with you. One just has to hear them talking. My elder one, my 8-year-old, is obsessed about aeroplanes. So he'll go on and on about this airline and this airport. But I think hearing them out is a critical part of getting to the crucial conversations when they actually have something that needs your intervention. And sometimes, especially when you're tired, it's very tempting to say, okay, that's fine, that's enough, when he goes on about an aeroplane for the 50th time. But I think it's important to build that trust that the parents will be there to listen. And right now, I mean, my husband, because he works in a bank treasury, has actually been going to office right since the beginning of the lockdown. So that's meant a lot more time with me, with the kids, because I'm the one at home. But I think some of these islands of time with them have been very, very useful.
So that is actually, we had done a little focus group talk with some children. And one of the things that they mentioned that, what they want from parents is sharing. So I think all of you have reflected that in some way or the other. They want to know what's going on in their parents' professional lives. They want to know what their stressors are. So one child said that his mother's a doctor, and when she comes and she discusses about, a case history of a patient, whatever she can discuss with the child, he says, I feel involved, I really feel good. So I think that really, we've all talked about it, but sharing, sometimes we just feel the goods have to be shared. But certainly when you're talking about feedback or sharing some of the stress points, some of the not so pleasant points, I think that also does add to the child's ease of being able to share when it's his turn, like Mansi, like you were mentioning right now. Yeah. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to move on to the next round.
Parul, I'll just add one more thing. I think, again, because my kids are much younger and they actually want to be with the parents, I guess, unlike teenagers. So there have been many situations where I've been on calls where the kids have been with me, and obviously not crucial ones where I'm presenting or whatever, but my older one actually sits with me when I make presentations and sort of, advises me. And I realize it's quite nice because, they are seeing a side of me that they wouldn't have seen otherwise.
Yes.
And as long as, I'm not sharing anything confidential or whatever, I think it's a good mix or a mashup between work and home.
I totally agree. I think it's very important for children to see that aspect of their mom especially. They do get a glimpse of that of their dad, but they really do need to see that side of their mom.
I think they need to see moms as a human person, right? And not this glorious, idealistic person. And I think that's what's being reflected in all these conversations. And I'm glad to hear that because that is something that needs to go out as well.
All right, so I'm going to move on to the insights part of this discussion, and I'll be bringing up some of the insights from the study itself. And I would love to hear your perspectives on that. Mansi, I'm going to start with you for this one. My question to you is particularly about the social media mom who's getting all her concerns about her child's growth and development answered by social media. Social media se poochte hain, as she says. Here's a great data point from the report that illustrates changing consumer behavior of digital moms. When we asked them about their primary source of information for baby care products, 42% of respondents said that they looked at online resources, reviews, blogs, parenting websites, etc. Are brands building enough digital conversations to leverage that?
So I do think brands are doing some stuff in that direction because obviously, as your study has revealed, I'm sure brands which target the mom early childhood space do sort of show up similar results, and it is intuitive. I think all of us know it. I think they are doing stuff, but I would say the key factor is how do you differentiate yourself? Because the problem is when everybody goes out there and gives reviews from everything from diaper rash cream to early learning gadgets to, things that will promise your kid entry into IIT. I kid you not.
Absolutely. I think that's just the whole point of it, that, this is a trend that nobody can ignore. Anuradha, coming to you, one of our most interesting insights was to do with nuclearization of the family. And Priya's already brought up that point. We're talking about nuclearization that's happening both physically and mentally, because now joint family mein rehkar bhi life nuclear hoti hai, as a lot of moms have said. So there is obviously an entire approach to motherhood changing. So there is a mother who said, sunti sabki hu, lekin karti apne man ki hu. And one of the things that we see that is happening, one of the trends that were highlighted, in fact, in the study, was how traditional rules are getting ritualized. So she's listening to Dadi and Nani ka nuskha about, haldi and ghee and whatever else, but she's putting her own twist to it, and she's doing modernizing it, rationalizing the ritual, repackaging Nani Dadi ke nuskhe. In your opinion, are companies ready to address this kind of a growing need?
But specific to what advice we take and what do we capture, it's interesting. Mansi spoke about being from two different cultures in the family. Me and my husband are from two different parts of the country. He's from Andhra, I'm from Delhi. Our influences are quite different, but I feel like what I'm passing on to my kids is a mashup of the Telugu styles and the Telugu nuskhas, and the Delhi styles and Haryana styles from what my grandmother taught me and things like that. But I also feel like what I apply to it is my logic and science. I think it's a question of influences. And all these influences, individuals, mothers apply their own logic to, right? And the logic can be scientific, the logic can be urban, it can be environmental, can be social media led. You are absorbing so many things and forming your own logic, and that I think is the reality. Are companies aware of it? Some are. And I think the ones who are, and there are some who are picking up on trends, and I think that's what makes them innovative, and maybe they come up with new and interesting things in the market. But I wouldn't say that this mashup effectively of traditional and modern or urban is a serious trend in the product world today. I think I used to keep saying that in India, the back to basics movement will take a little bit of time, and people like Manisha are probably at absolutely the cutting edge of it. But, Indians are still getting excited by the 20 varieties of shampoo that they get on their, on their supermarket shelves. So we are still looking for that Western urban influence, and especially in the middle classes, because it's just about coming to us for the last 10, 20 years. So is someone repackaging traditional values as a company? Yes, I think it's happening. But it is still at a very, it's at the cutting edge. It's a small set of people. It's still people who are just realizing the value of what, traditional values might have been, or rituals might have been, or nuskhe might have been. But it's not prevalent. It's a trend, but I think it's still a micro trend. I can't see it as a really big one.
Right. Manisha, my next question to you is about choices. Anuradha just touched upon that point that we have so many choices now. That whole supermarket shelf is getting confusing, in fact. It's only going to grow, obviously. Our data shows also how informed and savvy moms are, especially the new age digital moms. We're talking about reviews and everything right now. She does not trust the brand's claims. She insists on fact-finding everything. Label reading. I mean, we've all seen how label reading has suddenly become a part of an informed mom's choice-making process. She reads multiple reviews, wants to try free samples, etc. My question to you is that how does a brand need to respond to her need for high integrity, for an honest brand narrative?
I think, Parul, here, moms are no different from other human beings. So classic consumer behavior applies very much to mothers as well. And we all know that we are essentially irrational beings. We tend to buy things because we like them and not because, they do great stuff. But we need to know and have a good rational explanation for why we are buying things, because when we are going to get back home, somebody is going to question us and say, ye kyun kharida? Either it might be the husband who might think you've spent too much money, or it might be the children who will always push back and say, nahi, hame nahi ye khana, ya hame, we don't want this. So I think brands need to do two things. One is that they need to connect with the mothers at a sort of a primal level, with much better inciting than what they've been doing currently. I think days are gone when you can just send every mother on a guilt trip, and a lot of the advertising to mothers is like, hey, you're not good enough a mom, and now if you buy this product you'll be a good mom. That's been typically one sort of insight play for brands. And the second one has been smart mother, right? We've been seeing that since the Lita Ji's time, that you are a samajhdari ki tumne. I think these are very, very now stereotypical insights and sort of segments and slotting of mothers. So brands need to definitely work much harder to unveil some better insights and to be able to connect through communication, advertising, packaging to mothers in a much more modern way than what they are doing at the moment. And I don't know the answers because, I don't work for a brand which is targeting mothers. But if I were, then I would have definitely done that work. And then to give the mother enough of a rational reason to make that purchase. And that rationality comes from either the back of pack or the blogs that you've written, the FAQs that I can find on your website, the advocacy that you've built by having other people advocate it, by having good social media chatter around it. Those are all rational reasons for her to feel that, yes, I've taken the right decision. So I think that's really how brands have to play, and product innovation definitely has to play a large part. I mean, there's only that much you can do with advertising. And frankly, we've been selling the same stuff for the last 20 odd years just by making cosmetic changes and doing very superficial kind of advertising insights around them. I think really need to be much more product innovation driven marketing rather than just advertising and communication driven marketing.
I think that's a great point that, the innovations have been cosmetic, just like everything else.
Brands have to do is actually have integrity. And I think that, this element of doing something and saying something else is probably, it might have worked in a time of lesser information at the consumer's hands. It just doesn't work anymore. So it's not a question of being caught out. It's a question of consumers being savvy enough to figure out that this is true. And what you're writing in your blog is not what is true, or you're positioning yourself and things like that. And I think it puts a lot of pressure on marketers, innovators, product makers, everything, to say, how is it that I can be honest in my positioning? And it doesn't matter if it is. You have sugar in the product. Don't try and lie about it. And I'm just saying that it's all right. There are people who like that product, so don't be defensive about it, but don't tell a lie. And that's what I'm trying to say. I think you have to have, in today's world, greater integrity and because consumers hold you responsible way more than they did, say, about 10 years ago, because they have so much information at their fingertips.
Absolutely.
I love Manisha's point that, shades of motherhood, right? When I only see two shades of a mother, that's what I call, the distorted perception that has been going on. And I think that's a relevant point for anybody who's working with brands, with mothers and kids. And I think that's a fabulous point.
Priya, I'm going to move to you for my next question. And, we've talked about a few of the insights from the report. Yeah. And they're all extremely relevant for every single brand or anybody who's targeting consumers, especially the mums community. There are a few points that I definitely wanted to bring out. Yeah. There were especially something to do with the rise of vernacular media. We've seen that, there is this huge tilt towards people consuming in the language of their comfort and choice. Also, it's Hindi or regional languages. They're all at par as far as this insight is concerned. And it is definitely going to be the future. I'd like a small, maybe Manisha, you can give us a little insight on this, that again, are brands responding to that? And because it is, of course, a lot of re-engineering of their communication to be able to address, and especially considering the kind of number of languages that we have in the country. But again, what is it that will take, what should brands be doing in this direction to be able to address people at a more local level, at their comfort level?
I think, vernacular is more than the language. I think that's the way you talk about it, perhaps in your research report as well. And I think brands have always assumed that vernacular is the language. And so, you'd make one sort of ad and then just dub it in 7 languages and say, dekho, hum to bilkul vernacular hai. And I think that's where we get it wrong. And we now need to, and with social media, earlier we could never really slice and dice our TGs so tightly. But I think with now digital marketing allowing us to actually segment people far more, in sort of closed groups with very little spillover, we need to also unearth vernacular insights and be able to put across a piece of communication that reflects that vernacular. It's not just a language that dubs it, but actually brings to life that experience, which is like, this is my life. I can identify with it. I think that's where, and obviously if you try to do it with conventional advertising, the costs become too high. You can't do that kind of, large production of like 10 different types of films. But that's where you need to then scale down and start getting films which are much cheaper, pieces of communication which can happen far more on the fly than what we are used to doing as traditional marketers, and then put that out through a more digital, sharply defined digital channels rather than the television approach that we've always been used to.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, that it goes beyond the language. It goes to the more socio-cultural nuances that each region wants to see for their own, something which they can identify and relate with.
Yeah.
Anuradha, my question to you is about, this increasing pressure that mums have to look and behave a certain way. It's always been there. But now with media, the explosion of social media, your Instagram and everything, where I have to be awesome. I have to be this awesome mom. Whether it's in my way of dressing, the way I speak, whether I'm speaking in English or in some other language, my fitness level. Average is not just not good enough for their child, average is not good enough for the mom as well. So let's talk about the role of media in all of this. Social media aside, but mass media and popular media, let's talk about that also, that how that is fueling these perceptions, and what do you think we need to do over there?
The interesting thing is, I think the pressure has always been there. It's just that the pressure was in smaller circles, because your circle was small. It was really family, maybe a few friends. And the pressure came from trying to be better than everyone else. It was always about keeping up with the Joneses. The phrase comes from the Victorian times, right? And so I don't think the pressure it wasn't there. It's always been there. I think the world of media exploded the pressure. Because you could see someone's life which was being projected to you sitting in Gujarat in a large Gujarati family on Hindi TV, and then suddenly you're thinking all these women are wearing beautiful saris and jewelry all day long, and look at me, I'm in my gown the entire day. And there is an element of looking up to this environment and saying, do I want to be like them? And I want, but there is I think the influence of media, and of course Bollywood has been doing this forever. But I think the influence of Bollywood and TV has, the consumer has the intelligence to discount it. To a certain extent, it has been discounted by consumers saying, I know this is not reality. I know this is not really happening. And hence my life will always be a middle of what my aspiration is, what the television or whatever other media is showing. What's happening with the explosion of social media is that this world is expanded even more. But your ability to project yourself and express yourself is suddenly in every woman's hand. And I think that pressure is new. So I never thought the pressure to look or, sound a certain way or to be a good cook or have great skin, it's always been there. But now the pressure is to express all of these things and stand out, because so many creative people in the world are now being able to do that. And this is new pressure, because you've never felt the need to go out there and showcase yourself, showcase your family, showcase the drawing room, showcase your organization skills. It's amazing how many people are doing it at every strata of society. And the explosion of TikTok, if you ask me, is telling me exactly that I can do a little bit which will be funny, silly, entertaining. And I don't even have to be on TV, but I don't even have to be on YouTube. But someone somewhere will find me funny and I will get my little 15 seconds of fame. And I think women are human beings, as we were saying, and mothers are also human beings, and they feel that pressure of saying, I also have it in me. I think the joy is the fact that they couldn't do it all this while, because it was always financial. It was always about going out of the house and working. It's not anymore. they can actually do this where they are. So I'm saying the number of cooking channels that are opening up because women can put up the video, a camera in one corner and say, this is what I make. Or makeup influencers, who are coming up, or gardening enthusiasts, or you name it. And I find that actually really liberating. So I think there is pressure. We've always, as human beings, feel the pressure of competing. And that's, I think, human nature, being ambitious, being competitive. It's there. It's all in all of us. But it's also a great opportunity, an opportunity to be expressive, to get out there, to find things. So there's a balance, and everyone is trying to achieve that balance, and women as well. They feel the pressure, but they're also finding really exciting ways to do things.
Yeah, it's there. 15 seconds of fame, or as we say in the social media world, your 3-second audition. So everybody's out to ace that 3-second audition.
That's true. That is true.
And
counting the number of likes. And counting the number of likes.
Gets obsessive, but that's part of it. I think that's part of the being awesome the theory.
That is true.
And it's also living your aspiration in a different way, right? Because
exactly,
all the women's studies that I've done, everybody wanted to be a pilot and be something and fly. And I should say, why this particular analogy? And it was about your freedom and an expression of that freedom. And I'm talking about 15 years ago, and that hasn't changed. And jeans wearing was another symbolism of freedom. And it's interesting.
Right. Yeah.
And I think TikTok allows you to do that, right? Newfound
and so much more.
Yeah.
Mansi, my question to you is really about the rise of the mompreneurs. Of course, women have been in business, women have been entrepreneurs, but now this, thanks to social media, thanks to WhatsApp and everything, this whole freedom or the opportunity to be able to start a home business, whether you do it, from home or more professionally in a proper setup or whatever, that has changed things around for women, right? I'd like you to throw a little perspective on that, especially from the financial savviness and the independence angle also.
Absolutely. And I think this has been an absolute blessing for a lot of women, because earlier I think it was dependent on women with a certain from a certain strata of society. You really needed your family's support. You probably couldn't do stuff when your kids were very young. So there were a lot more constraints. I think what social media has done has kind of made the starting point smaller. So as Anu said correctly, if a woman has fantastic baking skills, for example, nothing stops her from just setting up a channel, and I'm using the word channel very loosely, for just being able to bake cakes for her friends and family. Now, that may not transform the world, but just the fact that the woman is earning some pocket money of her own, using a skill that she's very good at, that makes her happy, gives her some social validation. I think it's a phenomenal thing that's happened. And you do see women using talents that they had. You do see women learning a bit about finances, which I think is a great thing, because working in this space, I think one thing women do need to learn is greater financial independence, because no matter how good a relationship you have, the fact is you can't always depend on anybody else. So I think it's been a phenomenal blessing. Women have been able to, start classes from home. And what this also does is it allows women without any capital investment. I know of women who run yoga classes just 6 hours a week, so 1 hour every day. Now, most people can make that kind of time. They earn money for it. They help others. So it works wonderfully well.
Absolutely, it does. Priya, if you'd like to lead this question, and we just do a quick round on this, and we get.
I just wanted to know. Yeah. So I'll just frame the question that the super achiever child, okay, why is that still topmost in the mother's mind, and why is it still relevant as it was about 10 years ago? Yeah.
In fact, I have a feeling, especially according to the data points, that it's become even more of an objective. Like you said, my child is a lab project.
Yes.
So it seems as if a parent's energy is being directed completely towards achieving that particular super achiever project.
So just a quick round about why do you think it is? Yeah.
If I can just take a shot at getting started, I do believe this is going to be a declining trend. I'll sort of stick my head out and make that declaration. I think it's maybe another 5, 7 or 10 years and it's going to be dead, because the amount of mental health issues that we're going to start seeing in children are going to be quite significant, and people are going to start realizing that this project is not worthwhile. I think people need to realize, mothers and fathers as well, that your children are not your pet projects. They've neither come into this world for you to spoil them silly and give them stuff so that, they feel like you have such loving parents. Neither have they come into this world to fulfill your ambitions or become super achievers. I think I really love the quote from Khalil Gibran, which says that a child has come through you, but he's not yours. He is life's longing for itself. He or she is life's longing for itself, and that's when you're just the person who happens to be the conduit and the channel. So children will live their destiny. They will do what they have been brought to this world to do. Our job is only to equip them with the right spirit, with the right values, with the right sort of experience and training, so that they can live out their destiny to the best of their capability. I think that's really the role of parents. Unfortunately, too many people don't get that.
I actually raised my daughter Tahira on that poem because I saw it in college, and I said, if I have a child, I'm going to raise her on this poem. So, it was like, but it's beautiful. Those words are absolutely beautiful.
Mansi, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I do think there is pressure now. I think earlier the pressure was very academic and that was reflective of maybe 15-20 years ago. But yeah, there is this desire now to show that my child is the best at something. Now that could be playing the guitar or being the best cyclist in town. But I completely agree. I think that is the role that parents and those who are responsible for bringing up a child, the family and the friends ecosystem need to inculcate. Celebrate the differences, celebrate the children for who they are. And I think all of us, Anuradha, Manisha and me, people who've had more than one child, know that the children are so fundamentally different. So if two siblings brought up in the same house are so different, why not celebrate that? Not everybody needs to be the CEO of an organization. This is what I tell people in my team at work as well. So celebrate those differences, and I think really respect people for who they are. It's easier said than done, but I think it's our responsibility as parents to do that.
Yeah, I feel like, when I visualize this pressure, it feels like a volcano. But, and I feel like the pressure is real. And it's not just on the parents, it's very much on the children as well. But in the environment, it is up to parents to actually release that pressure. And, as opposed to creating that pressure. But I also feel like there's a little bit of a pyramid, like a financial literacy or even an emotional literacy pyramid. And I think what happens is as parents engage with what happens to children when they are under this much pressure, and they realize, as Manisha was saying, that there is mental health and other health issues happening, they start releasing the pressure. The only hope is that it doesn't happen too late. The reality is India is not going to become a less competitive place. The environment today is making sure that the same people are going to compete for so many more jobs, right? So I feel like in this volcanic pyramid upwards, if the financial pyramid is like that, the guys in the middle, the ones who are aspiring to reach the next level but feel the pressure of the guys below them for all the roles, they're the ones who are going to be under this pressure continuously. The middle class is going to continue to feel this pressure. As they move up the Maslow's hierarchy, maybe it will become lighter.
If I can just say something serious, something funny in addition to what Anu has said. I believe really, and COVID has shown this to us, that the future is going to be one where it's not competition that will survive, but cooperation that will survive. And I think this pandemic has shown that already. The small economy, people going back and living in their areas, working well together, sharing resources, that's really going to be the future. So I think the spirit of competition will also die down. But, talking about the project, about the overachiever child, I remember when my daughter was very young and I took her to a birthday party, some mother who I didn't know tried to get into some kind of a conversation with me. And she asked me, what does your child eat or drink or something like that? And I was like, she's a fussy eater. She said, my child has chicken soup or something like that. And I turned around and I told her, you win. She's like, what? I said, you win. She's like, what do I win? I said, you have won. Here, I give you the crown. You are the best mother going around. So she obviously never spoke to me again. But the point is that we need to break out of that cycle. I think mothers get sucked into that trap. कि यार उसने मुझे ये बताया, वो तो कही थी, उसका बेटा ये कहता है, अब मेरे को भी ये करना है. We need to just give the crown to that person and say, भैया, ये लो, you are the queen mother and let me move on. I think that's a very important thing mothers need to tell themselves. कि ये कोई
Yeah.
Very valid point. I really love that point, and I'm glad I know what to do the next time around. I'm going to keep the crown ready to pass it around,
Absolutely.
because we hear this all
Pass
the
it around.
pass it around.
I think that's a good one.
Okay, so now we have what we call a rapid fire round, and a little surprise for all of you. Very, very simple
my God.
questions. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be putting you on the spot for just 10 seconds. I mean, a few seconds. But it's going to be good fun. So Mansi, should we start with you?
All right, happy to be the guinea pig on this one.
Okay, great. All right, so quick questions. Please make sure the answers are also really quick. And okay, here goes. For home chores, are you a better multitasker or a delegator?
Multitasker.
Your favorite nutritious junk food hack?
Well, frozen potato wedges and stuff, I pretend that it's nutritious because it shuts my kids up. So
Actually, you with the youngest kids in the group, I thought this would be very apt for you. Okay, next question. A Bollywood actress that you would cast as the perfect new age digital mom?
can't think of anyone, honestly.
Okay, okay, no problem. That's all right. A rumor that you would like to start about yourself?
That I'm a very focused and a very dedicated mom, because I tend to multitask too much, and that sometimes kind of takes away from the focus that I give my kids. So if I can pretend that I'm more focused than I am, it may be a good start.
So that's the pretend crown then.
That's the pretend crown, absolutely. But I love that hack, Manisha, I have to say. I think it will shut people up permanently, so I'm definitely going to use it.
Okay, so I'm now going to give you a tagline, and you have to identify the brand whose tagline this is or was. Fill it, shut it, forget it.
Sorry, I'm blanking out on this one. I've obviously heard it, but I'm sorry. I'm forgetting it. Sorry. So
Hero Honda.
Okay.
I know this is one of those moments.
Yeah.
Har ek friend zaruri hota hai.
Airtel.
Great, great. Thanks, Mansi. That was awesome. Okay, Anuradha, spotlight's on you now. I'm going to ask you the question that Mansi passed. A Bollywood actress who you would cast as the perfect new age mom.
Vidya Balan.
Perfect.
She
And
she doesn't have children, but I think she's super sensitive and has very high EQ.
in fact, that film Tumhari Sulu is such a lovely depiction of a woman with drive and, the passion to just go out and do what she wants. I think, yeah, perfect.
So I know her, and I know her sister and her sister's kids, and I know how engaged she is with her sister's kids, and I really think that she would be a good mom.
Perfect choice.
Very balanced mom.
Right. What would we catch you doing in your me time?
Dancing.
Dancing.
So
lovely.
I now do 6 hours of Kathak a week. And,
lovely.
It's very intense, and I've been learning for 3 years. And now I realize how, why they say that you need 10,000 hours of practice to be good at anything. So to do this, forget along with work, it's my me time. It feels like meditation. It feels like solitude of a different kind. And I feel so poor. I feel like there is so much to gain and so much to learn. And, there's just isn't enough time.
Okay, my next question to you. The film or series that you're watching right now or just finished?
Unorthodox. I loved it.
Right. What are your children watching?
Oh, please don't ask that. My kids are watching Korean drama and they're obsessed. We are now learning how to speak Korean as a family because the two girls speak to each other in Korean when they don't want us to know what's going on.
Okay, Anuradha, I have 2 more questions for you. We have tagline related questions.
Okay.
So identify the brand whose tagline this is or was. Think different.
IBM?
Apple. So close.
Apple. Oh, was it really? Oh God, I never thought.
Yeah.
What a mistake that was.
I think, so if you remember the campaign, here's to the crazy ones.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was thinking, here's to the crazy ones,
Yeah,
but okay. That
All
makes
right.
sense.
And another one, clear hair.
Sprite.
Perfect. Absolutely. Sometimes it's just so difficult when you're on the spot, right? To think.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
Manisha, your set of questions.
Yes, I'm ready.
Your favorite Nani Dadi ka nuskha?
अपनी दादी का नुस्खा, I think brandy for a cold.
Ah, nice one. One thing that makes you feel fabulous.
A hair wash and a blow dry.
Oh, nice. Name a Hindi movie that you think caught the mom nuances just right.
Masoom.
3 things still pending on your bucket list. This, I think we all want to hear the answers.
Getting a 6-pack. Maybe doing a real TED Talk. I've done a TEDx, but not a real TED Talk. Maybe that. And maybe acting in a ad or a movie, like, yeah, maybe with my salt and pepper hair, somebody will cast me as like one old auntie.
Character role.
A character role.
We'll keep that in mind.
Heroine. Talk to me after this.
So we have your taglines. So identify these. Don't be evil.
Oh man, I have no idea.
Google.
Oh, okay.
It used to be actually part of their motto, and then they used it as a tagline for the longest time, and then they dropped it finally.
It doesn't make for a very nice tagline.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it would have been better to say
Trying to promote corporate integrity, but that's exactly the reason why they finally dropped it. Okay, the other one. Born tough.
It's MRF tires.
Seat tires. So close.
Yeah, tires. I knew
Yeah.
it was
You know,
tires.
this is what it means. There is like, you know, there's
so much
branding.
misattribution.
So much misattribution. No branding.
So much misattribution.
I'm thinking IBM for Apple and you're thinking MRF for Seat. My God, जो भी हमने काम किया ना उसका कोई value नहीं है.
हमने इन brands पे काम ही नहीं किया.
हमने इन brands पे काम नहीं किया. That is right.
Some brand managers would be feeling very hurt.
Raj Akshay is still living, Mansi.
Priya, I've got some questions for you as well. Okay.
Go for it.
Age of your child that you felt was most stressful.
8.
8. Okay. Your me time reality versus fantasy.
My me time reality is sitting at home by my window doing bugger all.
And was there a fantasy?
Yeah, and my fantasy is deep sea diving. I just love that experience. Yeah.
Yes, I can identify with that. I haven't done much of it, but yes, I do love it.
It's surreal and frightening and freaky because you remember the Jaws movie. Suddenly you believe it can be both. So, yeah.
Okay, so the film or series that you're watching right now?
I watched The Good Place. I loved it.
Okay.
Yeah, I just loved it.
That's about the afterlife or something, right?
Yeah. Very well done.
What's your daughter watching?
She's watching, I'm glad Anuradha brought up with the Korean thing. She watches YouTube, Josh and Ollie. And it's called, oh my God, they're really good. And they do such a great act, the two of them. And I hated during lockdown, they're eating Korean food, which I love.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if you get these taglines.
Okay.
It's a very simple one, actually. Connecting people.
I'm very bad at all this.
I see Anuradha raising her hand.
Yeah, Anu, you can give my answer. I'll share the prize with you.
Nokia.
Perfect. Okay. Priya, I don't know why I kept the most simple ones for you. Nothing official about it.
I'm bad. I'm blank at all of this.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, you have to know
Come
this
on,
one,
this
Priya.
you should
Come
know.
on. Huh? You have to know this one.
Go for it, Mansi.
Go for it. Go for it.
Is it Pepsi?
It is Pepsi.
Yeah.
It is Pepsi. It's been such a fabulous discussion. I think it's been an absolutely great discussion with some key points coming. Your perspectives have been really, really interesting. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. And thank you so much. Thank you all for sparing your time and for being a part of this discussion and the first CMO's Roundtable at Momspresso.